The night before my Laidlaw research project was, naturally, a dark and stormy one. My project would focus on the concept of the sonic body, exploring the relationship between sound and the body in films. I was excited to do independent academic research for the first time, and the project had appealed to me due to my frankly unhealthy fascination with all things film, but at the same time, such a challenge seemed alien. I had undertaken preparatory reading into the topics of sound and cinema, yet still had no idea where to begin. Morning came, and I made my way to the university library. The task before me loomed as vast and intimidating as ever. Fortunately, I had arranged a meeting with my academic supervisor, Dr. Lucy Donaldson, and hoped that she would be able to help me find a sense of direction. I explained to her that I was feeling overwhelmed by the wide-ranging scope of the project, and we discussed possible angles and ideas that could be explored. She was also extremely helpful in recommending films, essays and books which could be relevant to my project, and an hour later I returned to the library brimming with ideas and enthusiasm for the weeks of research to come. An early hurdle I faced was defining what my project title, The Sonic Body, actually meant. Initially, I struggled with finding an appropriate meaning, as there seemed to be so many possible interpretations. Ultimately, however, I came to realise that not having a concrete definition of my research title was no bad thing. I had to accept that I could not know the exact trajectory and content of my research before I had even started, and therefore had to be open to exploring myriad understandings of the sonic body. This conceptual liberty allowed me to find my own interpretation of this title, leading me to consider ideas which I might otherwise have dismissed. I explored the relationship between body and sound on screen through various experimental lenses, including how the body of the viewer may respond physically to film sound, how new technologies, such as virtual reality sound design and improved cinema sound systems could affect audiences' understanding of bodies on screen, and the role that film music plays in relation to cinematic bodies. I began my research by looking at horror films. Horror is not only one of my favourite genres, but also places particular emphasis on the body and bodily experiences. Whilst I had only intended to use horror films as a jumping off point for my project, I came to realise that there was a huge body of work in this category that related strongly to the themes of my project. Consequently, over the next 5 weeks of research, I focused almost exclusively on horror films and spent much of my day scared half to death. Through this research project, I knew that I wanted to develop my critical skills. I therefore read and analysed many horror films and theoretical texts. I also set myself the goal of creating an archive of research materials which would form the basis for my further study in 2020, and collated all of my findings online. Additionally, I wanted to explore a variety of digital media, not just films, in order to consider how new and changing technologies may relate to the idea of bodies and sound. This led me to explore virtual reality for the very first time. I also performed an experiment to test an academic theory regarding the physical reactions that horror films could elicit from audiences using sound and music. For this experiment, I collaborated with the School of Medicine to monitor my heart rate and blood pressure whilst I watched a horror film. I then analysed the sound and music effects used at points when my heart and pulse rate were highest. This was an extremely interesting experiment and one which I really enjoyed, especially as I haven't studied science for 4 years. Once I had completed my research, I sought to present it in an engaging and entertaining manner. I therefore created a video essay outlining various theories and applying them to cinematic examples. This was another unusual outcome for my project, which allowed me to present information in a new and creative way. To conclude, my Laidlaw research experience has been a fantastic one. I have learned the importance of allowing myself not to have an exact research plan, and as a result, my experience was far more creatively diverse and explorative. Similarly, I have successfully created a body of work which will help me next year, and have experimented with new ways of conducting and presenting research. In the second half of my project, I would like to move away from horror films and explore the concept of gender in relation to the sonic body, a topic which I never had time to investigate fully this year. I am also extremely excited to spend the next 5 weeks of my project at Trinity College Dublin. I'm sure it will be a fascinating and rewarding research period. Finally, I would like to say a huge thank you to Lord Laidlaw for sponsoring this scholarship, to my wonderful supervisor, Dr. Lucy Donaldson, for her invaluable guidance, and to the Laidlaw team at St Andrews. This has been an amazing journey for me, and I cannot wait for the next chapter.